Carter, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank all of you for being here. This is certainly an important subject, and we appreciate you lending your expertise to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor and privilege of representing the entire coast of Georgia, over 100 miles of pristine coastline, and I'm very proud of it. It's my home. It's where I've lived all my life and intend to live the rest of my life. And it's it's right at the tip of the spear, if you will, on what has been happening with climate change. In fact, we've had 3 hurricanes in the last 3 years, and barely dodged one this year with Hurricane Dorian. And as a result of that, we've taken on a number of projects in trying to make our communities more resilient, because we feel like resiliency is extremely important. And I want to tell you very quickly about a couple of those. First of all, the University of Georgia, along with the Army Corps of Engineers and some private sector companies and nonprofits, have taken on an initiative called Engineering with Nature, where we use natural sediment in a way that makes beaches and wetlands and communities more resilient. And that's very important. Also in Jekyll Island in Glenn County, the Army Corps of Engineers is working on a project that rearranges pluff mud in the intercoastal waterways to protect the marshes. And Tybee Island, which is one of our barrier islands in Chatham County on the coast, they've done a number of different initiatives. In fact, they are the first community in the state that has come up with a community-wide sea level plan, and also they are very involved in projects dealing with sand dunes, and that is certainly with dune restoration. I had the opportunity to visit and see some of this with them, and this is extremely important. I want to ask you, Dr. Ferrajoni, is that fair enough? Okay. These projects have been associated with federal funds, and I just wanted to ask you, how important is it to make sure that we at the federal government prioritize these projects and make sure that we're getting them done in a quick manner and in a way that we can make sure that these projects are done as soon as possible?
Certainly there's a need for increased investment in those coastal ecosystems, protection and restoration. And they have this dual benefit, as you say, of storm surge protection, flood risk reduction. One of the other benefits they have is through storing carbon, and even further, some of our salt marshes, when they're disconnected from the ocean, they become freshened and they begin to emit methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. And so simply reconnecting those saltwater marshes and making them salty again can reduce methane emissions and have a significant climate mitigation benefit. And that also restores their ecological function as an estuary by reconnecting them with the ocean. So that can be as simple as widening culverts and putting in tide gauges.
Well, let me ask you this. You're familiar with the discussion about climate change and the conversation. Do you think that we're concentrating enough on resiliency, or do you think that we need to look more at how we can make our communities more resilient?
I think there's a great opportunity to increase the resilience of our communities, and it's this mix of gray and green infrastructure, if you will, but we've underinvested in that green infrastructure, and preventing development of places that are at risk, and maintaining that natural habitat as a buffer for storm surge is a great way to do that.
And you would agree that we've got to have a buy-in by the private sector, that they've got to be part of this, and in order to have that buy-in by the private sector and to have their participation in this, we need a strong economy. So you would agree that a strong economy is important to this as well?
Certainly one of the potential sources for investment in natural climate solutions and protection is through voluntary carbon offsetting, and that's something that we're already seeing that in some industries like the airlines, where it's very hard to use anything other than to replace the jet fuel with renewables. They're planning to offset those emissions, and having that go to things that also increase resiliency is a win-win.
Good. I don't mean to be redundant, but I'm constantly reminding my colleagues up here on the dais that Georgia is the #1 forestry state in the nation, and that it is extremely important that timber, of course, and it helps us in removing carbon and how important that is. And just want to make sure that I get that plug in again, that the #1 forestry state in the nation is doing our part in trying to remove carbon from the atmosphere. And with that, I will yield back.
Madam Chair, one